Hello and welcome to Manga Comic TV's Versus segment. Today we're going to be answering a question: who wins in a one-on-one between Anakin Skywalker and Mace Windu? And yes, this one is for my Star Wars fans. Now, some of you guys may already know who's going to win this fight. And if you know, you know. But if you don't know, we're going to be answering that question today. So, before we even get started, let's start by answering the question: who is Anakin Skywalker? Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, is one of the more great characters from the Star Wars universe. He was once a Jedi Knight until he turned to the dark side. Now, when we first meet Anakin Skywalker, he's literally just an innocent little kid. And the brilliance of Star Wars is, if you don't know much about Star Wars lore, when you're first introduced to Anakin, you would swear you're going to watch him grow up to be the protagonist of the story, but this is not the case. When we first meet Anakin, he is slave to Watto, a Tordarian junk dealer. So unfortunately, this means Anakin does not have his freedom, but eventually he does meet Qui-Gon Jinn and a young Obi-Wan Kenobi and a young Padme, who he would later fall in love with. With the help of Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin manages to enter the pod racing tournament, as he has a pod racer he's been fixing up. Anakin ends up winning the tournament and subsequently gaining his freedom. Now, Qui-Gon Jinn suspected Anakin to be the chosen one, but others suspected differently, and upon bringing it up to the Jedi Council, they did not want Anakin to be trained as a Jedi out of fear that his emotions would make him more susceptible of falling to the dark side. But eventually, the Council would agree to let Anakin be trained under Obi-Wan, but some would still be opposed to it. Anakin would be trained as a Jedi and he would eventually marry Padme. Him and Padme had a very deep relationship and they would eventually have twins. Unfortunately, this would result in Padme's death. Anakin always had conflicted feelings though, out of decisions he made in order to become a Jedi, one of which meant leaving his family behind in the custody of slavers. This would eventually lead Anakin to return to Tatooine, where he would discover that his family had been killed. And upon discovering the fate of his family, Anakin would go on a rampage and slaughter a bunch of Tusken Raiders, thus beginning his descent deeper into the dark side. Eventually, Anakin would fully commit to the dark side and he'd pledge his allegiance to Emperor Palpatine. Anakin would go on to slaughter a bunch of people he held close to him in the name of the Emperor. As Anakin is on his rampage, he is eventually confronted by his former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi. As the two Jedi are face to face, a fight ensues with Obi-Wan Kenobi eventually gaining the upper hand. As Obi-Wan stands high ground above Anakin Skywalker, Anakin is unrelenting with his faith in the dark side and he chooses to attack Obi-Wan Kenobi anyway, and upon attacking Obi-Wan, he ends up getting mortally wounded by Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is essentially the death of Anakin Skywalker and the birth of Darth Vader. And listen, for one to become Darth Vader to begin with, you would have to be exceptionally strong in the Force. I'm pretty sure that goes without saying. And look, this is not the whole story, this is just the Cliff Notes version. But next, we're gonna move on to Mace Windu. So who is Mace Windu? Well, Mace Windu is one of the strongest Jedi from the Star Wars universe. Mace Windu is considered to be a Jedi Master that wields a purple-bladed lightsaber and is considered champion amongst the Jedi Order, eventually rising to the title of Master of the Order. Now, if you've only seen the Star Wars movies, it's likely that you only know Mace Windu from his time serving on the Jedi Council during the Clone Wars, or from the short sequence where he gets blasted out the window by Emperor Palpatine after getting his hand cut off by Anakin Skywalker. But Mace Windu is so much more than that. Mace Windu has faced death-defying odds countless times and came out unscathed, even during the times where he did not have a lightsaber available to do battle with. Now, when discussing how strong Mace Windu is, it is important that we talk a little bit about the 7 forms of lightsaber combat. Now, a lot of people think these forms get progressively more deadly, but what I will say is a lot of that depends on your progression with the form. Now, Form 1 being Shicho, or the Way of the Sarlacc. Form 2 being Makashi, or the way of the Salamiri. Form 3 being Sarisu, or the way of the Minok. Now the fourth form of lightsaber combat is Ataru, also known as the way of the Hawkbat, also known as the aggression form. This was one of the forms of lightsaber combat used by Anakin Skywalker. The history of Ataru stretched back through the Old Republic to at least as early as the Mandalorian Wars, where it was commonly employed by Jedi in that day. Ataru continued to be a common form amongst Jedi in the later stages of the Republic, but it was also known to be used by Sith. The fifth form of lightsaber combat was known as Jimso, aka the way of the Krayt Dragon. Now, when talking about the fifth form of lightsaber combat, it is important to note that one of the most powerful practitioners of Form 5 was Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader. It was developed by practitioners of Form 3 who felt that the defensively minded form unnecessarily extended time spent in combat by forcing users to wait for opportunities to strike rather than creating their own openings. It is worth noting that after Anakin lost his limbs and became Darth Vader, he used a more powerful variant of Form 5, which in turn was Jimso. Now, because of Form 5's aggressive nature, there were a few Jedi that believed Form 5 went against the teachings of the Jedi Order, but the form was okay as long as it was utilized properly. But Anakin Skywalker would have been a prime example of how Form 5 could bring someone closer to the dark side, as Anakin Skywalker would often use his aggression as a crutch in situations where he was outgunned. The sixth form of lightsaber combat was Niman, also known as the way of the Rancor. But the seventh form of lightsaber combat is what we're here to talk about, because the seventh form of lightsaber combat, also known as Juyo, or the Ferocity form. Juyo was an extremely chaotic and unpredictable lightsaber fighting style that was developed from elements of Form 4 and 5. The speed and unpredictable nature of Juyo practitioners made them seem nigh invincible because of how chaotic and unpredictable the form was, with one of the most famous practitioners being Darth Maul. The implementation of speed and aggression from other forms of lightsaber combat made Juyo practitioners extremely hard for anyone to deal with. The flavor text for Form 7 reads, "In many ways, some have described it as a surrender to the Force and to chaos. To strike at an opponent with such speed and angles of attack, they have difficulty countering it. But in surrendering yourself to the Force in such a way, it reduces your ability to resist its effects. Should an enemy turn the Force against you, be on your guard." Form 7 is described as the most vicious form of lightsaber combat, and it is said to involve a significant internal focus on the part of the user. Form 7 was so vicious that it was even outright banned amongst the Jedi for how close it brought its practitioners to the dark side. Very few practitioners of the form actually master it, and the Jedi have forbidden it altogether. Now, besides Darth Maul, one of the most noteworthy practitioners of Form 7 combat was Mace Windu. Mace Windu was not only a master of Form 7 lightsaber combat, but he would go on to create an alternate variant of Form 7 in the form of Vapad. Now, one thing that's worth noting about Vapad is it was not just created by Mace Windu, but it was also created by Sora Bulk. Now, Sora Bulk would later go on to fall to the dark side, with Mace Windu stating that Sora Bulk never actually mastered Vapad. Vapad mastered him. So now the question we're here to answer today is, in a fight between Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker, who wins? Does Mace beat Anakin, or does Anakin beat Mace? Well, most likely Mace Windu beats Anakin 9 out of 10 times. And I know there's going to be some dumbasses in the comments that say, "Oh, well, technically Anakin already beat him, didn't he?" Well, no, he really didn't. And if you notice, we never actually see Mace Windu die. But Mace Windu not only has feats that just outscale Anakin, but Mace is also on a whole nother level in terms of skill. Mace Windu also bested Emperor Palpatine, who not even Yoda could defeat. Anakin Skywalker was an extremely strong and extremely skilled Jedi Knight, but Mace Windu is a fucking Jedi Master, and he's champion of the Jedi Order that specializes in dealing with combatants that utilize the dark side. Lastly, another reason Mace Windu wins is because Mace Windu boasts one of the most overpowered skills in the Star Wars universe in the form of Shatterpoint, which is described as a complex force phenomena, perceivable immense focus and concentration on the part of the Force user. Shatterpoint goes hand in hand with Vapad, and it is also described as a rare force ability that allows the user to find structural weaknesses in objects or even living beings and exploit it, sort of like applying force pressure until it breaks. Mace Windu was adept at this skill. Now, I know there's gonna be some motherfuckers out there that's gonna be like, oh, well, why'd he die the way he died in the movie? Well, first of all, if you notice, we never actually see him die in the movie. And secondly, Mace Windu went out like that in the movie because he was far too overpowered. They had to find a way to get him out of the story, or else it just wouldn't make sense, especially considering the fact that the Star Wars movies are some of those movies that break down over the slightest bit of scrutiny. So it doesn't make sense for them to keep a character as overpowered as Mace Windu in the story. But in a one-on-one fight between Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker, Mace Windu takes Anakin's head 9 out of 10 times. And not just that, Mace Windu does him so dirty that it's really not even a fight like that. Mace Windu does Anakin just like he did Boba Fett, while calmly walking off and stating, "I told you you weren't fit to become a Jedi Master." In a fight between Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker, Mace Windu is whooping that ass. Thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, and subs are all greatly appreciated. Have a beautiful day, guys. Peace.